I'm in my third act, and it's the best act of my life. Each decade gets better and better and better. Of course, a lot of people, and I'm included, we talk about our ailments, and then I just laugh. I said, every time when I turned 50, I said, this is going to be the best decade of my life. And it was. So welcome to The Art of Aliveness, Let Your Spirit Soar. Chronicles on discovering your fountain of youth. And I have the privilege and the delight to be with my dear friend, Virginia Dutton, who lives in New York City. So please lend her, whether you're watching or you're listening, bring your vision and your ears. She is a gift to the world and incredibly inspiring. Before we dive in, I want to let you know a little bit about Virginia. She has an amazingly inspiring background. It's really interesting. So, having left a successful career on Wall Street to pursue her vocation as an artist, Virginia Dutton lives in New York City. And Virginia's uncanny aptitude for sensing, focusing, and expressing energy in color and texture are at the heart of her gift for painting. Her ability to express herself through different and unusual media creates art in which energy takes chromatic, solid form. Her works of art have been presented and sold on firstdibs.com, Housing Works, Design Gala, benefit events, Regis High School, silent auction, Marjorie's Fund Gala, silent auctions, CHEM, Chelsea, Galleries Art Live, Museum of the Shenandoah Valley, Arlene Vanguard's Upper East Side Gallery, Spring Market Art X Design at the PPD, the Historical Design in New York City, American Foundation of the Blind, 100th Anniversary Gala in New York City. And her statement to all of us is within her artistic practice. The colors of energy that course through all aspects of life reveal themselves to her in a visual design. And it is this energy that paints the picture. Through observation and surrender, colors are transferred onto canvas, paper, wood, or glass. She merely gets herself out of the way. Her work is abstract, but not by intention. As she says, I portray essence as energy, so it reads as abstract. But to me, it's very figurative. The tensions between real energy and abstraction, flowing acrylic paint and sturdy wood, allow me to create a rich, complex artwork. So we are privileged, Virginia, to have you. And thank you. Thank you for having it work with your crazy busy schedule to be here today. Well, so I want to start by asking you, what is it at this point in your life? What is it that really matters most to you? What really matters most to me is that people really get the sense of who they are in the world, what their soul says to them. I channel art. So if I was painting a piece for you, Anne, I would get out of the way, drop every thought I have in my head. I'd bring you through, and I'd ask your guides, your spirits, your angels, whatever you want to call it, to show you what you need to see in this lifetime. And that's the goal of life, is to show people the greatness and the power and the courage and the strength they have today. So that's it. Okay, so I know we've talked about this before, and maybe this time I'm really hearing it. So one of the things that probably struck me when I first met you was that most artists that I know of, in the traditional sense of a visual artist, they're painting either a vision or something that they have that they see that they put on canvas. versus you as a channel for that which is within each and every person to be expressed, which is really unusual. So, no, it's really extraordinary. So, given your bio, will you take us on a little journey of how the heck, what were you doing on Wall Street, and how the heck did you get from Wall Street to being a spiritual guide, a channel, and then translate that into visual art? Because what I hear is that if I were consigning you to work with me, you wouldn't come in and do a picture for me to hang on my wall. Like, oh, that goes with the environment. Yeah, that would really
no.
honor. You do something that is personal and a personal expression of what you see inside me that I don't necessarily, it's my blind spot. You bring blind spots to life. Before we get to that, how the heck did you get from being a seer and a blind spot remover from Wall Street? So that blows me away.
Well, first of all, I came to New York for acting.
Okay.
So I got in acting school, did that whole thing, did off-Broadway, did films, did all that as I was creating my financial stability. As a type 1 diabetic, I was always told, you have to have financial security. You have to have insurance. You have to have a job. So I always thought, I'm never going to have a job, but I went to Wall Street. I ended up managing a trading room desk in the 80s, still doing theater at night. And then years later, in 1987, I went on a vacation with a boyfriend actually to visit him. And his dog got in this horrendous dog fight. And he had to fly off to a meeting. He throws the keys to the Jeep at me and goes, get there to a vet. He's hurt and he's hurt terribly. And look, my license had expired. I'd never been in Dallas before. What was I going to do? So I'm out by the pool and the dog Bear is crying and crying and crying. And his leg is all bloody. And I mean, he couldn't walk. And so something just had me go inside, sit in the chair. Bear was laying right beside me. My hand went down his leg. I felt the heat and my fingers curled around. And I don't know how long I was gone. I just left my body. And then I felt the current go down my arm, out his leg. My hand was pushed back and Bear yelled. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I think he's going to be okay. And so I got up, washed my hands. The owner of the house came in from lunch. And when she opened the door, Bear jumped up on all fours and ran out without a hurt, without scratch. So, of course, I was like, this is not what I plan on doing with my life. My boyfriend came back. He grabs my hands and he goes, if you're not going to be an actress, you're a healer. And I'm like, get away from me. I was so not into the healing or the woo-woo or so anyway, long story short, I came back to New York. I worked with a NASA physicist who taught me about energy, and it all made sense to me. And so I did that healing bit for a little bit, and I didn't like it because everybody wanted me to fix them. And I was like, I'll teach you how to do it, but I'm not a healer. Something happens. You come through me, you know your body better than I do. Anyway, so I ended up going to Connecticut, teaching housewives how to do it with their friends. That was fun.
Yeah.
Then I came back and people were calling me. And so I used a technique called kahuna healing. And they believe that you can heal the physical body without the body being present. So I would pull them in from all over the country and I would see colors. And someone said, why don't you put those colors on canvas? And that's what I've been doing ever since '87. And the picture behind me is a diptych painted for my acupuncturist and his wife. So, yeah, their lives show up. They pick the colors. I invite their guides to come through me and show them what they need to see in light. And it brings up their beauty, the simplistic, easy flow of light, courage, love, compassion, everything shows up on the canvas. And actually, it's 4 pieces in one because it can turn in any direction and you get a whole new view of your life. So I call it abstract realism because it's more real to me than a realistic painting. But of course, people call me crazy sometimes, but it really does when people see who they are and the greatness and the beauty. And on top of that, they're always amazed at the color. They love their paintings. And I just sort of laugh and I go, well, you're the one who picked the color. Of course you love it. I did one and a woman started screaming. I was at an art fair back in the 80s. And she's screaming, I just bought a sofa that color. And it was chartreuse and purple. And, colors I don't normally paint at. And so I would just laugh and go, yeah, that's how I paint. And it really is that easy. I mean, it takes a lot out of me, but the actual physicality of the painting I get out of my head. I become a vessel. And when thoughts pop up, the energy usually says, get out of the way. And I just go, okay, and then I clear that out, become empty. So that's what I call myself. It took me 10, 15, 20 years to call myself an artist because you're painting it. I'm a channel. And, so that's it. As long as I get out of the way, don't get any of my thoughts or ideas or, oh, this would be nice. Once that happens, boom, I catch it or they catch it and tell me,
Right.
This is not yours. This belongs to Anne, or this belongs to the Nats, or this belongs, So everything has energy, even a rock. If someone has a rock that means something to them, I can channel that. It's like I'm an energy person. And I don't know.
There are people that, younger. So, again, we've spoken before. So I maybe, and maybe this is why we're together now. In this particular conversation, it's something that there's a lot of sayings about we are spiritual beings in physical experience. There is that little s of self-expression, which is your own identity. And that's, it's the physical, it's the grounded in this reality, we could say, in this form. Somebody I know, called this our skin bag. and that we misidentify frequently with who our self is, big S of self, as the divine, the light of the divine, as a channel, as it's the meta experience. And that's very much, again, when we've spoken before, I didn't hear it quite the same, but that's really what I hear. And there are people that I know that, like you, what people want to put you in a box so that they can somehow relate to who you are. So it's like, oh, well, you must be a healer. I mean, that's, I am a channel of, however we say it, a channel to the light of the divine. And it's through me, the essence of you, the big S of who you are, manifest and express through me so that you can, I'm your mirror, but I am the mirror for that which you cannot see or that which you do not experience of yourself.
Oh, that's great, Anne. Well put.
But I hear
That's exactly what I do.
yeah. So who do you serve? How do people find you? And how do people find you? And like, if I wanted you to do me, right? Do me. If I wanted you to do me, then where do I put it? That's like, I'm practical. I'm like, okay, so where does my triptych go? It's,
Where does your wife put it?
what?
Where does your what go?
You said your triptych, right? Your panel?
Oh, this is a diptych.
Right, that's a diptych, but you said you also, right, do diptychs and triptychs and vortex or diptychs or whatever.
Quadriptychs. I do. Well, it's, you would tell me what size you want.
Okay.
This is 48 by 48.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in New York.
It's fine.
You would tell me the size you want. And I don't do sofa paintings. I don't do, I did one piece. I won't tell you who I did it for, but I was in my art studio and this guy comes in, goes, oh, I would love a painting for my business, which was honey. And so I said, okay. And he pulls in all these honey. He had not hundreds, but a lot of different colored honey. And I didn't need that. I loved it because I got all this free honey. But I paint this painting. It's called Delectable. It's on my website. And it so was, I was so excited. And then he comes in and he goes, wow. He goes, but Virginia, it doesn't match my chairs. His chairs were yellow, just yellow. And I said, okay. And I had never tried to do it with someone's specific colors. I just pulled the energy of the shop, the energy of the. So I did another one and it was awesome. And it matched his chairs. I went in, I looked at his chairs. I said, oh, I have that yellow. I had never painted like this before. Okay. All right. Now I know this is a GP video, but I have to tell you, there were 3 guys who worked in the shop and they'd hire another guy. And so I paint this painting and all I saw clover and honeysuckle and, all this beauty. And so they loved it. I took it over and they hung it. And next thing I know, one of the guys comes over and goes, Virginia, there are giant penises in the painting. And I thought, I hadn't seen them. And I think, oh my gosh. And he goes, and we've tried it every direction. And every direction, there are more. And so, he goes, what is that? I just pay what I see. What should I say? I just said, well, it's either you have a lot of testosterone in your term or something else that I'm not going to say on the site,
Right.
but, or your boss is, whatever. So at that point was when I had never done sofa paintings, and I will never do another sofa painting. But they still have it. I said, do me a favor, if you don't mention it, people probably won't see it unless it's a man. Yeah. So that was funny.
Oh my God. You're hilarious. I want to go back. I want to go back to, because this was also for our viewers and our listeners. And one of the intentions of this series is when we're, in our 40s or 50s, and we have a vision, and we also are working in JOB. Today's world is so different than when you and I were growing up, without that being ageist, just with COVID, with so many things going on. How did you make that how did you make the transition? Because you had a pretty, I'd say pretty important job on Wall Street and trading and managing. What was aside from the dog, Bear, and healing dog, Bear, what was it that gave you the courage, for lack of another word, to say, you know what, yes, this is provided, and I appreciate when you shared. Were you discovered as a type 1 diabetic as a child?
I was discovered in 1963.
Okay.
I was 6 years old. And so I've grown up with a lot of, you'll be dead in 20 years. When I was 15, I was told I'd be blind in a year because of diabetic retinopathy. I got on this study. I'm not blind. I have no peripheral vision, but I can see. But I've always looked for, I left Wall Street way before COVID. I mean, I'm a woman with 100 lifetimes in this one. So I left.
Which, by the way, is why, you mentioned you casually, but I know a number of people that are also type 1 diabetics. And sometimes the discovery is when they're 6. And there's a very different relationship to being alive and life when you have people saying, well, you may only live this much longer, or, well, you may lose your sight, or you may this, you may that. And a lot of people don't deal with that until they're progressed further on their journey. And it's very different to be 6 and then to live in that bubble and in that box. And I think it gives a different, and I didn't want to step over it because it does.
Let me tell you, I do not live into other people's conversation.
No, you don't.
I never have.
But that may be the answer to my question.
Yeah.
My question was, okay, let's kind of go back a little, put it in the bigger context. And then what was it that had you have the guts and the courage, to say, oh, well, I'm going to leave Wall Street, and I know they keep telling me with my health and blah, 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 I should make sure I'm safe. And one of the things, like a message of yours, is I don't live into other people's conversations. Not everybody's like that.
Well, look, I didn't. Well, yeah, there's so many stories. I mean, I've been in the film world. I left my first Wall Street job in the 80s, right after the crash. No, right before the crash. 3 weeks. So I trust myself. So then I took a year off, and that's when the dog thing happened. And I started playing with tarot cards and reading and seeing things and visions and it was, oh, Virginia the psychic, and we would go fly off. I did fly off astral travel. I call it flying off. I'd take people with us. But it's like each time something happens to me or to all of us, really, it's an opportunity. At first I got scared. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then it's like, you'll do what shows up. You'll do, and I'm forever going, okay, universe, I'm ready for any opportunity you have for me. And I swear the next day, a new opportunity shows up. I know I've said I'm ready. And there's something else. I mean, I was on Wall Street for 9/11. And that was one of I can't even explain it, but the benefit I got out of that was I quit drinking completely a year later because I was drinking.
What was the connection for you that had you choose at that point to put down your last drink? Like they say,
Well, I was actually taking a financial course, and I walk into the course, of course, late. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this guy on stage, someone in the class teaching. I thought, what's going on here? What am I missing? He doesn't know what we're talking about. I should be up there. I should be, anyway. And then that was over. And then the teacher gets up and goes, okay, who else would like to come up? And I'm looking at another, even a less intelligent person got up and started teaching. And I'm going, what am I missing here? What am I missing? And so after he cut them off fast, and then he gets on stage, he goes, okay, I want to know the question you asked yourself when I wrote this line on the board. Well, I hadn't even seen the line on the board. And I was like, what's the question? What am I missing here? That was my question. Over and over, I kept going, what am I missing? So I go home, pour a double. And as I'm drinking my drink, I go, light, you're missing light. And that is the simple way. And it wasn't simple, but that's how I quit drinking. And people go, I say, I love my life now. I love it. And people go, how could you love life if you're not going to be drinking with her? And I said, nobody knows I'm not drinking. I'm just having fun. So really, that was my question. What am I missing in life? And I think of that all the time because if I get quiet, I get rid of all that chatter and I ask a question to my guide. I call them guides. People call them angels or spirits or whatever they want, or God.
Your inner self, or your inner knowing. There's a lot of.
I just ask the question. I used to teach extemporaneous writing, and I would take people up to meditate, and then when we were at a point, I would say, all right, ask your question. And I'd say, listen to what's being said. And they all had pen and paper. And I'd have him write without periods, without anything. And then I think more than the majority, I'd say 98% of the people got their questions answered because they
say, so when you say ask your question, so at that event, right? So we're 2000, what, 2001? So that event,
at this point, no.
9/11 was.
Well, 9/11, I've always been interested in this kind of thing. I did Landmark in the 90s. I'm blinded. I worked with Kelly Powers, who's a psychic who found Ted Bundy.
Sure.
They got a psychic to find Ted Bundy. And somehow I ended up meeting him through a friend. I got involved working with him. I worked one-on-one with him. He got me into the healing. He got me into the painting. He's the one who said, put the colors on canvas.
Right.
So I'm just running off here. What was your question?
So no, it's funny. My question, thank you. My question was, what I was putting in time frame was, you said a year after 9/11 and being in a course. And then your question at that time was, what am I missing? So is that the same question you ask now, or do you ask yourself a different question?
Well, it's
what the circumstance, because I'm listening for our listeners or our viewers.
okay.
At those times when we have an uncertainty, the tendency for people is to go outside of themselves, is to go to somebody or get somebody's opinion, or go read an article. I'm going to go watch another this. I'm going to go do another that, rather than pulling their energy back, being contained, sitting quietly, and just saying, okay, now what's my question? And there's no one right question.
No.
Be given time. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
So, because it sounds right. Because then, if it's the kind of question of, okay, so like, what's next? What do I pack for my vacation? It can be a question as simple as that. And then you just
Well, it can be, you've got to be specific.
Okay.
It's, they talk so much about manifestation.
Right.
I was still drinking, and I said, okay, universe, my first dog had died, and it was about a year later. And that was 2001. It was 4 months before 9/11. And I said, okay, universe, I'm ready for a dog. I want a pit bull who needs me desperately. And no more. It was specific. Boom, boom, boom. The next day, I'm having brunch with a friend. He wanted to walk to the park. I wanted to get my laundry. And I ended up walking to the park with him. And we're walking along, and there's a woman with the dog. My first dog was a 100-pound lab bull terrier mix. Big, beautiful. And we're walking behind this woman, and he's hitting me going, that's the kind of dog you should get. That's the kind of, and I'm like, get off me, And we reached her, and I said, do you mind if we pet your dog? And she goes, sure. And so I'm playing with the dog. It was a pit. And she goes, he's available.
Oh my
and
God.
I started crying, and she had ASPCA written across her orange t-shirt.
Wow.
Long story short, I got the dog that night, and that dog needed me because they had tried to fight him. He was a year and a half. They had abused him terribly, and no one would take him. And so this is how easy it is. If you ask the universe for me, that was so easy because I wanted a pit that needed me desperately.
But it's what I'm hearing is the more, there's an expression, the more specific, the more terrific.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, the more specific, the more terrific. So when we ask, when we ask, it can be a specific question, like, okay, so I want a pit bull that really needs me. And that's pretty specific because there's a lot of pit bulls. And then what showed up is a pit bull
that needs me desperately.
Desperately. That desperately was in need. A traumatized pit bull that needed someone with your love, your energy, your capacities to be the vehicle that would restore that pit.
So really all I want to say is our guides, our higher power, or whatever, they want to serve us. They want to help, but they can't do anything unless we ask.
Right.
Ask, be specific, and guaranteed the next day, who knows? I didn't say, I want a dog. It wasn't all about me. It was about being of service for one. But I've also gotten pulled out of holes. I need money. I need this much for my rent or the next day. Someone's going, Virginia, I know you're having a hard time. I'd like to contribute, $1,200 and I'm just like, huh.
I want to be sensitive to our time.
Okay.
And I have a couple questions. So, and it's just amazing to be with you. Will you talk a little bit about the work you're doing with the Helen Keller Foundation?
Okay. I've always wanted to help with paint for the blind, actually, because my paintings are 3D. And so I want to paint where people can feel the movement, and then I can hear what they see in the art. So I've always wanted to do that since I was 15, thinking I could go blind. I didn't because I didn't listen to them. I was also a guinea pig, but anyway.
I have to say, I have to say, the irony of sight, by the way. Okay. How many people have full sight, whether it's 20/20 or beyond, and they are blind? They are more blind than anyone with any kind of, I'm going to say, any kind of visual challenge. And that's what I am most present to with you. So, and we keep saying it, who are the seers? Most of us do not see that which is right in front of us. And I don't mean physical reality, because that to me is what you see. So every time as we've been talking that you've been saying it, I wanted to just say, okay, and probably 99% of the sighted world is blind. And it's kind of the dichotomy. That's why I'm so fascinated with the work that you do and because it's how we think of sight and sense. And you have a very different perspective on it that I just get chills and shivers when I talk to you.
Oh, gosh, Ian.
So much love about you.
Well, that's another thing. It's not something terrible that happened to me. It's the gift that happened to me in order to be able to paint the way I do, in order to be able to open up and smell colors and taste colors. It just was a seed that was planted when I was 15.
So I interrupted, by the way. So continue about what you were saying with Helen Keller, but I couldn't, just couldn't step over it.
Okay.
But there's all of us and we don't see anything, right? We see who are blind, and
okay.
have a visual challenge and they see far more clearly. But I love what you just said, because part of it when we're not dependent on one sense, then it gives room for all of the other senses to be working synergistically. So it's a much broader experience when ostensibly it would seem it's a limited experience. You're channeling it in a way that's expansive, which to me is pretty extraordinary.
I'm lucky. It's a gift given to me. And I didn't think that when I was 15.
Yeah.
But so with Helen Keller, I really, really wanted to contribute to, I don't call them blind. I call them visually limited because, as you said, the blind see better than most people. So anyway, I'm in this program and someone says, I know someone you should meet. So I meet this attorney and we're talking and I said, it's funny, but I have really no idea how I could help you or why we're even talking. And he said, well, I might have a clue. He said, I happen to know the CEO of the American Foundation for the Blind. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. My whole life. I mean, I met this man at 64. I'm in my third act, and it's the best act of my life. Each decade gets better and better and better. Of course, a lot of people, and I'm included, we talk about our ailments. And then I just laughed. I said, every time when I turned 50, I said, this is going to be the best decade of my life. And it was. I was in a feature film. I did The Artist's Way. Then I hit 60. I had a massive accident, blah, blah, blah. But it got me on the road to health. It got me on. So with this man introducing me to Kirk Adams, we started talking. He is very much into the arts. He actually was able to go to a museum and touch the art. I was like, of course you were. And so we started getting into all this. And he said, I would love for you to paint a piece for our gala. And I said, I'll do it if you touch and feel the art. Well, I'm not quite sure if he did, but it wasn't auctioned at the event. They didn't have time to auction anything of the art. And so I thought, well, and I wasn't happy. It really bothered me. And the next thing I know, they're doing a documentary for Helen Keller. And I met the executive producer and with Kirk, and they want me to auction my piece at the opening of the Helen Keller event. I mean,
and when is that?
They're now saying September, October, and it's a beautiful piece.
And where is the event going to be?
They are going to do one in Florida, one in Texas. That's where I'll be, but it'll be out. They'll let you know.
We can look for it.
Yeah, and back then it was during the COVID time, so I was like, well, okay. Now I want to tell you about painting the Helen Keller piece. I'll make it short. Okay, so I called in her colors, and they're beautiful. They're blues and silvers and greens and just awesome colors, which blues, communication, green, heart, pearl essence, which is God to me. And it's called Intuitive Intelligence is the name of this piece. So anyway, I did a piece for 9/11 for their 20th anniversary this past year. And then I thought I'll do the firefighters. So I pulled in those colors, of course, red, gold, blue, and I had so much gold paint. So I'm standing there. I have Helen Keller's canvas all ready to paint. I have all her colors right there. And I pulled her in. And all of a sudden I went to my brain. Now this is what happened. I went to my brain. I've got so much gold paint. I just mentioned, I said, in my head, not talking about, oh, wouldn't gold look beautiful on this? Because I had a ton of gold.
Right.
And I get this. No. And I was like, okay, no gold paint. No. But it was a very no.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I'm out of my head. I'm in the painting. I just turn into a ball of paint, and I'm in the painting. And as I'm painting, I went back up to my head and I said, close your eyes, because you can do this. She couldn't see. And all of a sudden I got, open your eyes. You are meant to see in this lifetime. I tell you. I was like, okay. I didn't go back in my head, the whole painting. I was like, and then I step away. It is awesome. It's really awesome.
This is going to be the one that will be auctioned. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
So, yeah, it's actually on my website, but I'm not a photographer. I take pictures of my art with my little cell phone. And I'm standing up and they're sort of crooked. It's funny, but yes, I hopefully, that'll happen in September. Movies,
so for our listeners, our viewers, what is your website? So that we can all, I got it. It's like home movies, but it's wonderful for people to see. So what's your website?
Okay, it's www.dutton, DUTTONART.com.
Okay. So that makes it very easy.
For me.
So I have two questions.
Okay.
And we're going to do this again, by the way. So this is just our first run. There's so much more. There's just so much more. And happy birthday, by the way. Virginia and I talked a couple of weeks ago. She was still 64. So happy birthday. Right? It's your birthday. If there's one piece of advice that you would give, and trust me, I've been taking notes. You've given tons of pieces of advice. And I mean in the best say, advice, wisdom, I don't care what word we use, guidance, whatever channel, whatever word we want to use. But if there were one message you would want to give our peers, because we're peers, and our peers can transcend into beyond our peer group, but our peers, the next generation, and then the next generation, what would be a message that you would want to leave people with? That you've learned, you suggest, whatever that would do. So if there were one, if you could just into one.
Okay, I've said it before.
It's okay.
Don't live in other people's conversations. I don't care. If we're not living in other people's conversations, then we have the freedom to be. whatever, whomever we choose to be. And when you choose without all the conversations all around us, then you're coming from your heart. You're coming from, it's like, try just, and being a human being, we will always have the chatter in our heads. Unfortunately, unless we're, a Tibetan monk or living in one with God, but when we choose our hearts open, there's also an aspect of contribution. It's like I don't talk politics. I don't, because that's a fight waiting to happen, or looking for agreement. Stop looking for agreement. I mean, it's like, stand in your own essence. Stand in the greatness and the love and the beauty that every single human being on this planet has. You stand there and your life is not only going to go up, it's going to expand. So that would be,
one of the essence of it, and this I think goes back, and when we get to I'll send you, our listeners and viewers or whatever, and transcriptions will be available to synthesize all of that. At the heart of it, what I wrote down was, don't live in other people's conversations. We have the freedom to be and to create, because this is the whole art of life. Part of the habits and the practices that give us aliveness, no matter how many candles on our birthday cakes, right? If chronological aging is inevitable, but deterioration as we age is completely a choice. Part of the choice is stop listening to the noise from other people and realize that you are the creator. We are the creators. You have complete quiet down the noise. Then we can start to really listen and then live freely and choose and create the lives of our dreams. It's nothing to do with the birthday, with the number of candles on our cakes.
No, I love the number of candles on my cake.
Well, maybe that's another tip, is love the number that's on the cake, because that's how many there are.
That's right.
But resisting it doesn't make them go away. And if there's one action that you would recommend that people who are listening or viewing, one action that someone could take in the next 24 hours, if you can think of one action that they could take as a takeaway from our time together.
First thing that comes to my head is meditate. People go, oh, I can't, I've got too much in my head. But I find in meditating, I get closer to my soul. And so when all those thoughts come up, like bills or living situations or relationship, I imagine a river like Niagara Falls. And I'm standing there, and every time a thought comes up, I drop it and I watch it go down the waterfall. And that's how I found it so easy to just be there. And then, or you can do your...
I'm going to interrupt. It's something that I hear, and this could be something, and it's great because I wrote it down, and it's
okay.
It's like, if it's, so people that are listening, people that are watching, 5 minutes, it's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
5 minutes, close their eyes and imagine themselves sitting at the top of Niagara Falls, holding a pen in their hands. And for every thought or every bit of noise, drop the pen and just let it go down. You swept away by Niagara Falls. If there's another thought, pick up another pen. We have an abundance of pens that we could pick up to drop down Niagara Falls.
Well, the thing with me is if I pick up the pen, I'm thinking of a pen and my brain goes, what kind of pen? So what would be a good image if it's 5 minutes at the top of Niagara Falls? I would just say, okay, so I'm meditating. I'm thinking of you. And it's like, what questions is she going to ask? So I just go drop it in the fall. So imagine if it works for you to drop a pin with that conversation in it, great. But for me, it's just simple. The easier, the better.
Okay,
Just
good.
repeat the thought. Just have the thought come up and out.
All right. I'm going to take that on, by the way. So take
Good.
it on. I'm going to put you on the spot, and you're such a great sport. Because I'm going to put you on the spot. I got it. What do you think would be a good practice? So I will do that. I'm going to work with that image of Niagara Falls. All right. So anything you want to say before we sign off for now?
Well,
If there's anything you want to say.
I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I feel blessed to know you. And we came together in an interesting, all of a sudden we're talking and we knew each other.
Yeah.
Because your heart was open and my heart was open and boom. So thank you for that. And thank you for what you're providing people in the third act.
Yes.
Or even the first or second acts of life. You know, I plan on having a fourth act, but who knows? Who knows if I'll make 90? So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me play with you. That's what this is. It's all play.
Yeah.
So, God, and I can't get the smile off my face. So, Ian, you're a gift. You're a gift to the universe and a gift to all of us who know you.
Thank you for joining the Art of Aliveness Chronicles with Annie B. I'm Ann Borow-Lawrence. Join us next time for more great interviews with inspiring artists, all backgrounds, shapes, and sizes, where we will be investigating just what is it that keeps people alive, vital, and vibrant in mind, body, and spirit throughout their lifetimes. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it with your friends. Please like the podcast series and please do subscribe. With much love and gratitude, and see you the next time.